I know you listened to his album like this past weekend.
Yes,
Lupe Fiasco.
I finally got a chance to dive into the Samurai album by Lupe Fiasco, and amazing.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it was that short. When I heard about it, I had a lot of people who were like, "Hey, you need to check out Samurai." And now, mind you, I'm somebody who grew up at young ages. I grew up listening to Lupe Fiasco's music. Yeah. So I was from Food and Liquor, The Cool, even Revenge of the Nerds, the mixtapes he was putting out. I've always been big on Lupe's music. But there was a drop off where I kind of stopped listening to his music for a while, and I would probably say it was maybe after Lasers.
After Lasers, that's what it was for me.
Yeah, after Lasers, and I think it wasn't necessarily even intentional. I think I just stopped hearing about his music as much more, and just Kendrick and J. Cole kind of like filled that gap of where I would typically be listening to Lupe's music. But this album, for all the Lupe fans who might have dropped off and were like, I haven't listened to Lupe Fiasco in a while, but I used to love his music, you should jump back on I
think this is good.
This I think Samurai is this sounds Food and Liquor-esque.
Yes.
I mean, lyrical. I mean, rap even on the intro. I mean, he starts off like rapping at one of the highest levels that I've even heard Lupe rap on. Now, shout out to Lupe. Lupe also teaches a hip hop course over at MIT, so shout out that. But yeah, he still can rap extremely well, and he really shows it. Even in this short album, I think 8 songs.
Yeah, 30 minutes.
Yeah, 30 minutes, very short, but real smooth. I like that he chose this one. It has a very smooth melodic feel to it, but he's like rapping, I mean, at an extremely high rate and talking about some real stuff. So I really would recommend this album for anybody who hasn't listened to Samurai. Check it out. If you've ever liked the Lupe Fiasco's music, this is on par with that. The only critique I even have, this is not even really negative, but something that I think might have been missing, is that I would have liked to hear another voice on it as far as the vocals, as far as like the hooks. I think some of my favorite Lupe songs have like singers on it, you know what I mean? Whether you're talking about the Daydream type of records or the records he has. I want to say her name is Sarah Green, who's featured a lot on some of his albums.
Yeah.
I might be getting her name wrong, but he usually has a lot of vocalists who are featured on there. I would have liked to hear a little bit of that on here just to break it up. I think that him having some actual vocalists on here would have helped, but it's a phenomenal album. I salute to Lupe for this one. I think this is that Lupe that a lot of people missed.
I think they were missing. Because for me, as like, I grew up in the Midwest like you, and I've always been a fan of Lupe, but there was a time, especially after Lasers, where I kind of dropped off. I feel like in the right situation, and the right maybe production team or just collaborators, like Lupe is always capable of doing what he did on Samurai. Absolutely. I think it just has to be, it's all about timing for him. I don't know what the key element was kind of missing, or the ingredient that was missing in between those years. And maybe he wasn't missing nothing at all. But for me as a consumer, like I was just like, I'm not really caught up on Lupe. It seems like he's doing a million different things. He's a freaking karate master, like, or some type of high-level martial artist. He's teaching at MIT a hip-hop course. But with Samurai, maybe he's doing all those things, and it just masterfully came together for this type of body of work. But like, bro, it was seamless. It melded together really well.
I have to say that I really do believe that Lupe was blackballed.
You think so?
100%.
Okay.
I think that after Lupe started speaking out about, he was early with speaking about what's going on in Gaza.
That's a fact.
Like if you listen to Words I Never Said, like that, I mean, we're talking over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Where he was talking about what was going on in Gaza. Very early was speaking about that. Very early in criticizing Obama and some of the stuff that he was that was happening abroad. So I think that right around that time, I don't know, somebody pulled the plug on Lupe where he wasn't getting the same looks and the same commercial opportunities. And it's just my theory. It's just from what I witnessed in his career. Right around the time when he started speaking on a lot of different issues, he stopped getting as many looks. And I don't know if he intentionally pulled back and was like, maybe I don't want to be mainstream anymore.
Yeah.
Or if it was a blackballing. But to me, it looked, from the outside looking in, especially as somebody who listened to his music for a while and being in Chicago, it definitely seemed like right around that time, he stopped getting the love from the label support.
And that's kind of the perils of being a socially conscious rapper. It's
Absolutely.
like sometimes you're ahead of the curve, and that can, like, handicap you a little bit. You know what I mean? Lupe is an example of that. I think of like a group like Dead Prez. I feel like they tackle some topics that kind of like people steered away from them for that same reason.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Brand Nubian.
Yeah, Brand Nubian. Maybe a certain talk show host doesn't want you on to perform on their TV show because of that reason. No networks want to like broadcast, you know, your performances. Like it could be anything. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel like that's one of those things that again can kind of hinder you when you are a socially conscious artist.
And I think that the only reason why Kendrick Lamar was able to kind of avoid some of that is only because number one, his rap style is fast. It's fast enough where a lot of people aren't even realizing some of the stuff he's talking about in some of these songs. Like when I first heard DNA, I was like, yo, I don't think, and I saw it playing on like, it was on 2K and it was on like the NBAs were playing it during the finals and all of this. And I was like, yo, people have no idea what these lyrics are saying. And I think that Lupe wasn't like, Lupe was like, I'm not masking anything. I'm going to say exactly what the issue is. I'm going to put it in the video. I'm going to give you visuals for it. Unfortunately, I feel like he took some blowback professionally with his career because of that. Because of being so vocal and being like, I'm standing on everything that I'm saying. And I think he doubled down when making some different news appearances where he was talking about issues too, where I think that people were just like, yeah, nah. So.
Yeah, and sometimes even like I think another example of that is like a Killer Mike where it's like, yo, we rock with the music, we rock with Run the Jewels and everything else that you're doing, but sometimes your voice is probably maybe more appreciated than the actual music you're producing sometimes because he would be on like, you know, some networks, some platforms, and he would talk about politics or talk about race relations and things like that. So sometimes even when you do make music that's palatable to like a wide audience, they still, you know, certain powers that be still go to you for this and say that you are this. And maybe they did the same thing to Lupe to an extent as well. You know what I mean?
You are this and we're going to put you in this box. Killer Mike, man, has made some, well, even pre-Run the Jewels and with Run the Jewels, I mean, some very, very heavy conscious music. For sure. He's saying a lot. Yeah, he had a song called Reagan. That's one that I use in my class. And I think he breaks down the Reagan era as far as the war on drugs better than I think I've ever heard anybody break it down in a song before. I think is Killer Mike's Reagan. So if you haven't heard Killer Mike's Reagan, I definitely recommend listening to it. Very powerful song. But yeah, man, I definitely shout out Lupe with this album, man. I think that it was right on par with what I wanted to hear from a Lupe album. So
absolutely,
definitely will be an album I'll be returning like back to. It's not it's one of those that I will go back to.
And when I have conversations with my friends and they're like, yo, we don't want to listen to a Lupe, we don't want to listen to like a Killer Mike and everything. Some of these projects literally don't hit you until years after.
Yep.
Like even with me as someone who consumes like, you know, trap and like, you know, pyro trap and like all these other genres that others would consider just mumble rap. They would put that in the category, right? But I also listen to conscious rap. So I try to get a nice mixture, even though some will argue it's impossible to do so, right? Like I try to like expand my palette a bit. You know what I mean?
But I think it's possible to do so. I think that you can listen to, like for me, I listen to a lot of conscious rap, but then I also was a big fan of Dolph's music. I listen to a lot of Young Dolph's music. I listen to Key Glock's music. So like you can like both